Hello, welcome back. This is Jeff Byers, ANY150, your instructor. And for Module 3, this is our creating a sci-fi weapon, Part 15. So welcome back, and let's go ahead and try to finish this up. And the things we're going to need to do is make sure that you have your main high poly. And if you turn that off and on, these are all the pieces that we have that are now considered high poly. Okay. So the other pieces we have left, and the interior we need to get finished. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and click and just highlight this, and we're going to move this up the ladder all the way to the top. I want this to be in the top. Okay. I also kind of want to do a kind of a clean up, kind of clean things up a little bit. You can see that I've got my low poly pieces separated. Now this low poly piece would be something that will be on the low poly gun, and I'm going to have to clean this up because I've added edge loops. So low poly just means that we're still going to have these pieces here, but we may want to add detail, leave ourselves open for detailing things in Mudbox, and that's a possibility. We're going to probably go in there and add little details like rivets or screw holes or adding those kinds of small details in here, and we need to have a high poly. We need to have this as a high poly. So we're gonna be playing two different things. We're gonna have high poly and low poly occupying the same space. So these are things we got to think about as we're modeling. Okay. So let's go down, and we've got I still have a gun that has all these pieces. So what I'm going to do is all these remaining pieces that I have at the very top, I'm going to go ahead and take those and put those into a layer. Now these are just block out pieces. Okay, so I'm going to keep those up here, and we're going to turn those into high poly pieces. If we do want to add screws in here, or bolts, or pins, or something that looks like mechanical pieces, do have to keep them together, to keep the pieces together. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new layer for these pieces. Okay, and I'm going to call this low. Actually, I'm going to call this medium poly because it's going to have the edge loops. And we're just going to call this pieces. Alright, so I'm going to save those. Alright. So if I put these two pieces together, now what we're going to do is we're going to turn these off. And I'm going to turn on one of the low poly pieces that I have. This one in particular, because I no longer want to use this, I no longer want to use that, and I no longer want to use that or this. Okay, I'm going to duplicate these pieces that I still need to use. So these two are important to the success. These are the underlying pieces that will be underneath the high poly. So we need to create a high poly model out of these and bring these up into the high poly so we can have a finished high poly piece. So I'm going to go ahead and do a Control D with that one on, okay, and bring that up. And so we're going to have this, we're going to put these in here, okay. So I'm going to go ahead and add selected objects. Let's see if this will work, okay. And then I'm going to turn this back off. Alright, so we still have this if I need to go back to this. So, alright, so I'm going to go back to high poly. There we go. And this is my medium poly. So it looks like we have the two new pieces that we need to place behind. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm not going to really I'm just going to skinny this up a little bit. So, which means that with these two selected, again, it's going to be hard to select that one again. There we go. With those two selected, what I'm going to do is I'm going to scale those in. Okay, so I'm going to scale these in like this. Okay, like that. Just by using the yellow arrow. Okay. Right. So scale those in. So that means that it basically leaves these, the pieces that I just created, I've got to have those scaled in a little bit more. Let me scale this one in just a little bit more so we can see the detail that I've got for that piece there. And I can move vertices too, okay, because I'm scaling that in too much. So I'm going to scale this back one in just a little bit more, okay, just like that. And then I can move vertices around. Okay, so I'm going to hit the 4 key so I can see through the object. Okay, and I can also, let's see, I just want the back to be changed. Okay, so I'm going to isolate this one and probably put this up in the medium poly. I think I'm going to do that. So let's go ahead and so I can have that separated. And so this part back here. Alright, so that and this piece I'm going to put with the medium poly. So I'm going to go ahead and do a duplicate, and let's go ahead and put and right click over the medium poly and just add selected objects. There we go. So and then I'm going to turn off, I'm going to click on this one. Okay, let's turn this one off and click on this one, and let's get that selected again and delete that. Here we go. And then this one here, we'll delete that. There we go. So we have these in 2 different layers. Okay, so this looks like it's really, that looks good. I just don't need to see through here. So I'm going to go click on this one, medium poly, and if I go too small, right? If I scale it in too much this way, it's not going to be enough no matter what I do, and plus it's going to leave a huge gap right through here to this one, which I can make thicker if I wanted to. But I think that's pretty good, just thinning it out like that. Here we go. Now the problem with this, if I move this in too much, it might work. Scaling that in. It's still not, you can see it's still not enough, and it leaves, you can see that gap there. And I don't need to have this piece in here as well. So let me isolate this piece, okay, for a moment. Control 1. Here we go. And let's go ahead and move these vertices in, because I really don't need to see these anymore. So let's see if I select these. I'm just isolating to be able to select things a little bit easier, and see what that does for us. Let's go Control 1 again so we can show everything, and I'm going to move these. I'm going to move these in. There we go. To where I don't see them anymore in here. Okay. I also am okay. I think we're okay with that. Let me do one more thing. Go back into object mode with that one. Control 1. Also, this part right here, we can move that into as well. There we go. So you can see we're making changes here. Control 1. There we go. So because we have this piece right here. Let's go into object mode again. Okay. That will cover that area up there. And this covers up this area here. And this will cover up that area there. So I think we're good there with that. I think I could probably get rid of the back part. Let's go Control 1. Okay, so I don't need this anymore. It's nice to have it, but I'm going to go ahead and delete those faces there. So I'm going to delete these faces. Here we go. And delete this face here. Okay, that looks good. And we do not need the other side of this because we're going to duplicate everything over for this. There we go. Okay, so now let's go back into this mode and just make sure everything's covered. And if we need to extrude stuff or close this, we can. So I'm going to go ahead and do a Control 1 again. Okay. You can see we do have a gap here, and we have a little bit of a gap here on that piece. You can see that that's good there. We don't have any gaps in here. Everything's lined up and looks good here. Everything's covered here and here. We have a gap right here. So let's go ahead and fix that gap, and underneath here you can see that we've kind of got a gap there too as well, even though we have those are pretty thick, right? So still have gaps in those areas there. Let's go Control 1 and fix that. So I'm going to go ahead and move these vertices back like this. Okay, and that should fix it. Control 1 again, and alright. Let's move that back a little bit, like that. There we go. Okay, now I'm going to go in here into Control 1. Whoops. And select that as a whole again. Control 1. There we go. And I think I am going to close this up so we don't have any issues there with that. So I'm going to go ahead and close that by using the Pen to Polygon tool. Hit enter, and then we'll hit the G key again, the Pen to Polygon tool, and enter. There we go. Okay, so what I'm going to do to fix that doesn't look that great, but the way to fix that is to go in here and let's go into multi-cut, and let's go ahead and cut across from here across to here. See if it'll let me. Maybe it won't let me do that. There we go. Just kind of had to move it around a little bit and enter. There we go. And then we'll cut from here to here. There we go. And you can go, if I go back and if I hold the shift key down, it will let me snap, which is kind of fun. Okay, and then you can let go and just do it on your own if you want to. And we got one more here, and then we'll cut that way. And I can hold the shift key and let it pick what it wants. Okay. All right, so hit the Q key, right, and then we'll go to edge mode, and I'm going to get rid of this edge here. Okay, and this edge, let's just get rid of this edge here and here. And I'm gonna do Control Delete. There we go. And that way we have, let's go ahead and move that point down a little bit, that vertex down a little bit. Okay. There we go. And we'll move this one up just a little bit. Okay, that looks good. So now we're just kind of setting up for the inside pieces. And so now I'm going to do Control 1 to bring this all back again. And you can see we still have some issues here with it kind of poking through here. Okay, so this is good. That's good. This is all okay. I think I want to move this down a little bit more. So go back in here, and we need to move this. There's a gap right here too, and I can extrude a little piece off of there if I want to, just to kind of keep adding to it and make sure I don't have any gaps in here. So I'm going to go ahead and let's see if I can just template this so I kind of know where I'm at. And let me do this. Yeah, I think that's good. I think I'm going to add this. Select. Let's go ahead and template that again. Template it, put it on T. And I'm going to go to wireframe. This kind of tells me where I'm at here with this. So I'm going to move these down so you can selecting those pieces down. I'm going to select those pieces and then move them down. Hit the 5 key again and just move those down like that. Okay. Okay. Alright, that looks good. We want to cover this area up here. Because you can see that gap right there. Alright, that looks pretty good. We'll go with that. Just make sure it's covering it up. And then we need to move this piece here. There's a gap here. So I'm going to add a polygon that goes across here, right there. Okay, so I'm going to go into selection mode on this and just add an edge loop tool, an edge loop through here. So add an edge loop right about there. Okay, there we go. And then I'm going to extrude this piece over so we don't have a gap in through here. So go ahead and extrude that. And I'm going to hit the 5 key. It won't let me do it. Okay. Make sure I don't get into that. I can move this around, but I just want to fill that area up there and see what we got. Alright, so click on that. We're all done. Hit the Q key, click off, and let's go back into object mode and let's turn that back on again to see where we're at with this. Okay, we don't want to move that too far. We want to fill that area in but not move it too far. There we go. I may want to move that down just a little bit too as well. So I'm going to go do Control 1, select this part right here, vertices, okay, and just kind of move these vertices around that I need to. Let's go back to Control 1 again, and that looks pretty good. We just don't want to have anything show through. into that. Okay, so that looks pretty good. And I can move these vertices up because they're kind of showing. So I'm going to go ahead and let's go back into selection mode and do control 1. And I think what I want to do is move these vertices up just a little bit, move these vertices in a little bit, and that should solve our problem. Here we go. And control 1 again. There we go. That looks good. We're getting a lot closer. We see we still have a little bit of this in the back, but that's okay because we need to have that showing. But right now that looks pretty good. Just a little bit of an issue right here. Okay. So one more thing. We only needed a little bit here. So let's move that back even further. And let's go back into selection mode and go into, there we go. So now we've tweaked all that out. We still have a gap right here, so I've got to be super careful. I want it to be thick enough to go through. Okay, so let's go ahead. There we go, that piece right there. So let's go back. Just move it so it goes in just enough. Here we go. I think we're good. Okay. And then I need to go into this again, and there's one last thing I need to do. Control 1, and just select the bottom part here. Like that. Just move that out. So I'm going to go control 1 again. And just move that so we don't have any gaps here. Here we go. That looks good. Okay. Alright, so this piece looks good. Okay, so we got it. Alright, so there's really no gaps. Let's see. That piece there I need to go ahead and close. So I'm going to go ahead and do a control 1 on that one. Control 1. I think the only issue I have with this is that it needs to be pushed in. So I need to close it. So I'm going to go ahead and go to edge mode here on this one. All the way around. And we don't want it to, I don't want to have to delete all these edges here. So I'm going to control select, I'm going to hit the Q key, hold down the control key and just control select these edges here. I'm just kind of marquee selecting these edges here. There we go. To the bottom. And I don't want to do any of these over here either. So I'm going to just hold the control key down like that. And there we go. And so we need to kind of close this off here, this piece off. So I'm going to extrude that. So I don't want, see, that's going to be mirrored over, so I don't want anything on the inside here. Just the outside here. Okay. And this will help close and close little gaps that we may have when we rotate the final piece, final sci-fi weapon. So I'm going to do Control E and go in here and use the blue arrow. Blue arrow. There we go. Just move it in a little bit. Control E. Okay. Now it won't allow me to do that again. See, it wants to go down. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back and I'm going to move that in farther. Okay. And yes, it will cause problems in the corners. Okay. So move that in a little bit like that. And then any corners that will be a problem I need to fix. Okay, like that one is really bad. Okay. Alright. So we'll fix those. But that way we can keep that that closed. Close that up a little bit. Any holes that might come from any gaps that we may have. So I'm going to go ahead and fix these issues. Okay, and I have to use the, let's go in here and go to vertex mode and hit the 4 key. And you can see where the edges that are overlapping. So I'm going to click on that and just move it. Okay, click on this one and just move it. And I'm going to click on this one and just, move it where it needs to. I'm going to hit the 5 key now that we've got them all taken care of there. There we go. And don't worry if they're not perfect. Okay, that one's kind of pushed in all the way. So let's move that up a little bit like that. So it's kind of level with the rest. There we go. And then this one too as well. Let's move that up. And we'll move this one forward. There we go. Just do the best you can with this. It's not perfect by any means. That'll be okay. All right, then this piece here is good. This piece here needs some help. It's not too bad. Just move that down and move this in a little bit. There we go. So that one's okay. That one's not too bad. This one here is messed up pretty bad. So I think the first thing I'm going to do is just move this one out of the way a little bit, this one out of the way a little bit so I can see what the heck's going on. And then this one is, we can kind of move in a little bit and over and up and just kind of finesse that. Okay, like that. And so this whole edge here could probably be moved over this way. So this edge, this one and this one, could be moved over this way a little bit. There we go. So that helps. It's kind of, there we go. That was good. Alright, so once those edges are finished, then I want to put if I do a smoothing, I want to make sure that it will not round out too much right here. So I'm going to go ahead and do insert, edge loop tool, and right real close to the inside edge here, and then close to the outside edge. There we go. So that looks good. So that'll finish that part up pretty nicely. So if I go back into here now, I shouldn't see any gaps at all now, and it should still smooth out nicely. There's this little piece here that might need to be pushed in a little bit, that I can see as being maybe an issue or a problem. So go ahead and select these two. Whoops. Hit the Q key. And let's go back. Control Z. Hit the Q key. Get out of that. And these two little guys here are not really flat. Right? So I'm going to move those in a little bit. Just to flatten those out a little bit. Here we go. Like that. Not too much, because we'll have like a little bump right there. There we go. That looks pretty good. Okay. Alright, so that's okay. Alright, so now we've got, if we hit the 3 key, you can see that this will smooth out real nice. There we go. Okay. So that still looks really nice. Looks good. We just kind of added some depth to it. So when I turn on the main pieces, go one, that we don't have any gaps here. Again, we just have a little bit of a gap here. Okay. But the rest of it looks pretty good. You can see that fits on there real nice. Okay, and this one fits in there real good, so I don't have any gaps there. And this one here, we may have to extrude a little bit out to fill that gap in. We'll have to see how that works. Might have to extrude that in a little bit more on this side. I really don't need any more extrusion up here. These are all good. So we're just kind of problem solving this thing out. I'm gonna hit the 1 key on this and see what areas need to be filled in. Okay, that's okay. That's filling that part in. This may need to be brought down a little bit more. We'll have to see. This is the only part that's bothering me right there. So I'm going to go ahead and select that edge right here to let me know. Okay, so that edge right at the bottom is what we need to work on. Okay, so let's go into selection mode, control 1, and this is the edge right here that needs a little more help, so I'm going to go ahead and just duplicate that, and that's going to be okay. So I'm going to select this outer edge here, you can see, and just to play it safe, these guys right here, and these guys right here and here underneath. So go ahead and extrude those. So control E. Okay, let's see what happens when we push that in. Okay. Alright, so it's being pushed in, so I'm gonna have to pull it out a little bit this way so it's not janked up. Or we can try this route, control Z. Okay. Did I get all these vertices or edges? Did I? Okay, I think I did. Alright, so I'm going to control Z again, get rid of that. And then I'm going to go ahead and do a control E. Now what I did was I went all the way back out of the extrude. I'm going to go back into the extrude again and hit the W key and just move it out like that. Now the problem is when I moved it out, I have to move it up a little bit so I can see that extrusion. So I'm just going to move it out, move it up a little bit, and I'll just have to move these points again. So this edge, excuse me, this vertex right here needs to be moved down. There we go. So that should be enough to fill in those problem areas. Okay, and this one I'm going to click on the grid snap and snap that one back into place. There we go. So that should work out pretty well, just to fill in those areas that we had problems with. So I'm going to add one more edge loop right through here, just to kind of solidify that piece there. Hit the 3 key and see if it does well. Yeah, it does well. Okay, so we're good. Hit the 1 key again, hit the Q key, and get back into object mode. There we go. Alright, so now let's go ahead and control 1, and we can see that now we filled in those areas when we move around the camera. That looks great. So no more issues or problems with that, and we solved that. The only problems we have now is what do we do with this? This piece here is kind of pushed in, and we may have to move these pieces down because they're going to fight for. You just can't occupy the same space with textures. Alright, so you can't do that. So I'm going to either have to move this piece out a little bit, okay, which is fine, right? Just move it out a little bit, and see if we can they just need to miss each other by a little bit, so we don't have that issue right here. Okay, we'll do that in the next video, but we got the back part completely finished now. I think everything's looking pretty good, and we don't have any gaps in here, and that's looking nice. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and stop. We'll go into part 16.